Irene here? I'm sorry, I got to get closer. And for the record, be sure to introduce who you are and where you're from.
Okay. Well, it is quite an honor to be here, and it's an extra honor because I am a product of Arizona. I grew up here in Phoenix, and then I defected to another state in my adult years. So it's great to be back. I'm actually in Utah, in Salt Lake City. I represent the Institute for Research and Evaluation. We are a nonprofit research agency that has been evaluating the effectiveness of sex education programs across the country for about 25 years. And I'm going to present some research today that is from our most recent study that was just published in the journal Issues in Law and Medicine. In that study, let's see if I can make this work. Okay, you don't need that. Okay. We reviewed 120 of the strongest and most up-to-date studies of school-based sex education worldwide. Each of these studies had been vetted for adequate scientific quality by either UNESCO at the UN, the CDC, or the HHS Teen Pregnancy Prevention Evidence Review that Sharon just mentioned, and covers approximately 30 years of sex education research. Included in this database are 60 studies of school-based comprehensive sex education. These are programs that teach condom and or contraceptive use and may also teach abstinence. Also included in this database are 17 studies of abstinence education in the U.S., and these are programs that promote abstinence but do not teach condom or contraceptive use. So those were the two types of programs that we looked at. Our review of this research of these studies revealed 4 evidence-based problems with CSE in schools that I'd like to discuss today. The first one is that much of the sex education research today is subject to 2 sources of hidden bias. The first source is that many of the studies showing supposed effectiveness have actually been conducted by the program's developers or marketers, their authors. Okay, that is true of the majority of the programs on this TPP website that Sharon was showing you. A second source or concern about bias is that many of the researchers use very lenient criteria for effectiveness, a very lax definition of effectiveness. For example, short-term impacts, like the program effects last 4 months, but they disappear at the 12-month follow-up, or effects on only a subgroup of the target population. The program was designed for both boys and girls, but it only works for girls. Okay, or reductions in minor risk behaviors, but no increases in abstinence or condom use, while negative impacts are ignored. This is kind of the dirty little secret of this industry, and the TPP registry is one of the worst offenders in my observation. I have read the studies of these programs that she's talking about. A second concern is that many CSE programs normalize and label as acceptable behaviors that have a significant likelihood of harming children and youth. Let's see, I need to advance this. Okay. Research shows that condoms provide only partial STD protection, are subject to high user error rates, and do not protect from the emotional harm and dating violence that research has found can result from teenage sexual activity. And this is especially true for girls, which is consistent with some of the concerns, that we've heard in the popular culture or media about the Me Too movement. A third concern is that when measured by credible criteria grounded in the science of prevention research, school-based CSE has not shown evidence of effectiveness. Out of the 60 studies of school-based CSE in the U.S., only 3 showed a positive effect on abstinence, condom use, pregnancy, or STDs 12 months after the program for the target population, not just a subgroup, without also producing negative effects on some of these same outcomes. These criteria or standards are consistent with the scientific field of prevention research. Entities like the Society for Prevention Research and Blueprints for Healthy Youth Development. In addition, there was no evidence of effectiveness at reducing pregnancy or STDs or increasing consistent condom use by teens. Consistent condom use is necessary to optimize the protection from STDs. A fourth concern is that CSE in school settings produces more harmful effects than its proponents acknowledge. In fact, there is more evidence of harm than of real effectiveness. Out of these same 60 studies of school-based CSE in the U.S., 7 found that the program increased sexual risk behavior, pregnancy, or STDs for program participants. This compares to the 3 studies that showed evidence of effectiveness as measured by long-term improvement for the target population without any negative impact. I'm going to show you now a list of these programs. These are some of the most popular comprehensive sex education programs in the country. And they each have shown in recent research to have produced multiple negative effects. And I've listed them there. Teen Outreach Program, TOP, is one of them. Reducing the Risk is one of the flagship programs being used. And these programs, and the footnote down there is important to read, even those as the Society for Prevention Research and Blueprints for Healthy Youth Development stipulate that such negative effects should negate designation as an effective program. The HHS Teen Pregnancy Prevention website includes the above programs on their list of programs showing evidence of effectiveness, which in my personal view as a researcher is outright unethical. In addition to these concerns about comprehensive sex education in schools, it should be noted that the evidence shows that abstinence education appears to be have better evidence in school settings than CSE. However, the pool of studies is small and needs to be expanded. Out of 17 studies of school-based abstinence education, 7 found a significant delay in sexual initiation, which means increased abstinence, 12 months after the program for the target population without other negative effects. There was also strong evidence that abstinence education does not decrease teen condom use, which is a common criticism of abstinence education. In fact, one of the programs, the abstinence ed programs, actually increased teen condom use. And let's see, and there was one program that found a negative program impact. The Smart Girls, Wise Guys program that Sharon mentioned has not been evaluated by the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Evidence Review. I will say that that evidence review did a good job of evaluating the quality of the scientific studies, but they did not do a good job of evaluating the outcomes of the programs shown by those studies. This Wise Guys, Wise Girls didn't even make the cut for the research study. So in summary, out of 60 studies of school-based CSE, 3 of them showed evidence of effectiveness when measured by credible criteria that are consistent with the scientific field of prevention research, and 7 found evidence of harmful impact on program participants. And for the 17 studies of school-based abstinence education, 7 studies found evidence of effectiveness, and 1 study found a negative impact. Based on these findings, we offer 3 recommendations for policymakers. The first is that a cultural norm should be established that sexual activity is a risky behavior for children and youth, one that should be avoided until they reach adulthood and reserved for a committed relationship. Secondly, all sex education programs that do not produce long-term improvement on at least one key protective outcome for the target population should be removed from lists of evidence-based programs, especially those programs that have had harmful impact. Third, given the considerable lack of evidence of success for school-based comprehensive sex education, after 30 years of research, policymakers should pursue alternative strategies for reducing the harms of teenage sexual activity. Replication studies on the positive results of abstinence education in the U.S. should be done to inform the development of new paradigms. And I will just add that your handout has all of the citations of the scientific studies that support the evidence I've shown you here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Laura Haynes, and then Dr. Laura Vest.